it's important to make your parenting decisions based off of where the world is headed. And there's a lot of information about where the world is headed. It's headed to a little bit more of a chaotic environment, which gives a lot of opportunities. Here's an opportunity for us to sit and do a podcast. I mean, there's different opportunities out there. So I wouldn't do any homework. If I were a family that's not homeschooling, I would spend zero time on homework, especially K to 6, like no homework at all. If they send a homework packet home for your 4th grader, either I would do it, which sounds really dishonest, but I would do it with my left hand.
You as the parent.
I would, if they had to do it, I would possibly just do it with my left hand and send it in. Or I mean, that's awful, but I don't think that we have to jump through all these hoops. I don't think that we should jump through hoops that someone else made up that aren't applicable to today. So if it was going, I think it's a tricky.
And Ginny, you're my type of people.
Well, it's really tricky because I was a teacher, and I feel like if you are the parent that's like, my kid's not going to do this and I can't, it does actually reflect negatively on your child. That is the way the world works.
If you're listening to this and you're thinking, I love this lifestyle, but sometimes it feels incredibly lonely, we want you to know that you are not meant to do this by yourself.
This is why we started our Patreon community. It is a place for moms who are trying to feed their families well, make thoughtful choices, and just do their best, and to actually connect with other moms who get it.
In our Patreon community, you can ask questions, share wins, vent on hard days, and get real encouragement from people walking the same road.
If you are craving that support and community, we would love to welcome you over on Patreon. Check the show notes for the link, or you can just head straight to patreon.com/Modern Ancestral Mamas. Welcome to Modern Ancestral Mamas. We are Corey and Christine, 2 millennial moms on a mission to bring ancestral wisdom to modern motherhood. Our podcast is named Modern Ancestral Mamas, and we know how important movement is to health, but we sometimes forget to talk about it. So we also know that our ancestors spent the majority of their time outdoors, walking or moving or hunting or just being outside. So for that reason, we wanted to discuss movement today. And who better to have on than the queen of inspiring people to get outside and moving, which is Ginny Yurich of the 1,000 Hours Outside Project. So please welcome Ginny to the show.
Woo!
Yay! I know, right? It's always like, I'm waiting for the clapping.
I'll clap for myself.
Okay.
Good idea. Maybe we should get some sound bites for clapping.
Totally. It's just
all right, here's the biggest question. Am I a millennial mom? Because here's the situation.
Oh.
I was born in 1980, at the end of 1980. And my sister-in-law was born 5 months after me in 1981. 5 months, like to the day. And she thinks that we are in different generations.
I think technically you are. I think you're technically at the very end of X. But
so, 3 millennial moms are here today. I'll let my sister-in-law know.
I mean, okay, so we have on, Christine and I will claim the millennial banner, right? Because we're both very solidly millennials. We're both born in 86. And, we very solidly grew up in that millennial bubble. Yeah. But we have on all sorts of other people that are either not mothers, not women, we have an entire series coming out later with just Gen Z people to talk about that whole thing and what's going on with them. So you are in the right place, regardless of whether you want to claim to be a millennial or not.
I mean, I don't know if I do, just for my sister-in-law.
Okay.
How can we be 5 months different, but in different generations?
You know what's wild? This is wild to me. So technically, my brother, who was born in 97, and my son, who was born in 2011, are both Gen Z.
Wow.
So it's like the same sort of phenomenon, right?
Yeah,
like,
and I've got kids that are in 2 different generations.
Yeah, it's weird.
And it really is different. It is different. Like the youngest ones are growing up in a world with AI, and the oldest ones didn't, in the same sibling group.
Yeah.
Born 8 years apart. That's it.
Yeah, I'm going to have kids of different generations as well.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So my oldest is 11, 2014, and then I have one coming in 2026.
Oh,
Dude, you just announced
congratulations.
that.
Yeah, but this episode's not going to come out for a while, so.
Okay. All right.
Well,
Okay.
that's incredible. Congratulations to you.
Oh, thanks.
Maybe we should talk about that.
No, it's okay.
We'll talk about. We'll have. Yay!
Are you feeling nauseous?
No. I'm already 15 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah. No, and thankfully I didn't have too much nausea. The nausea was only if I didn't eat immediately in the morning.
Wow.
Like if I waited too long to eat breakfast. And I've usually been like a solidly 3 meals a day person. I don't need a snack. There's no need good 3 solid meals. And now suddenly I'm like, I can't eat very much.
Mm.
And so I have to eat much smaller meals more frequently throughout the day. I'm like, what is this nonsense? I'm not this person.
When are you due?
March 2026.
March is such a great time to have a baby.
Really? Okay, because
Yes.
my oldest was February, and then the other 2 are summer babies, and I really wanted my bookends to be like February, March. So I'm hoping this one is end of February.
Oh, I love March babies because I've had summer, fall, and spring. And I think that when you have a baby in March, April, then they're ready to go play outside. You can easily take them with you by the time the summer hits. And then the next summer, they're walking, like fully walking. So it's a great time to have a baby.
That's a really good point. I am really grateful that, because you're going to hear us say this, darn dogs, that in the summertime here in Texas, it's really hot. And so to have a baby like May makes summer nearly impossible for you because you're just inside all the time. But if you have a baby maybe like February, March, like you said, then by the time summer hits, they're a little more resilient.
Yep.
And you can spend time outside.
Mm-hmm. How exciting.
Okay, we usually start our show with a little roundtable question. It'll take as long as you want to answer it, but it doesn't have to be super in-depth. So we'll all 3 take a chance answering it, and then we'll dive into a little bit more of the meat of the podcast, okay? So today's question is, if you had a completely free day to spend outside with your family, with no distractions, no schedules, no agenda, what would that day look like? So Ginny, if you want to go first, you can, or one of us can go first.
I will go first. I would float down a river for the whole day. That's my favorite thing to do. It could be a kayak. It could be a tube. It could be a canoe. I wouldn't even care. But I love to be out on a river. I love that meander. I just think it's so peaceful. We've done it a few times as a family. There's not like that many amazing places, but we just did it in Michigan's Upper Peninsula a couple weeks ago. And it was just stunningly gorgeous. And, you stop here and there with a sandy bottom and you swim. And I just think it's the best day.
Nice.
I like that. I have not floated a river since college.
Yeah, I don't think I've done
that. It's like you don't do it that much, but it's like so wonderful. It's a great thing to do as a family. There's a lot of options. You would do a double kayak if you got a 4-year-old. Yeah. And you're kind of just stuck out there together. And there's always animals and turtles and frogs. I mean, it's just beautiful. Birds. I love it.
I will not lie. Like, I wouldn't do it where we live. We live in Southeast Georgia. There are gators in the rivers.
Well, I've done it in Florida.
And see, that's terrifying to me.
Really? You did it in Florida?
Yeah. Okay. It's called Kelly Park. It's in Apopka, Florida. And it's a spring. It's called, I can't remember what the spring is called, but it's in Apopka at Kelly Park. And it's this spring that's it's like a natural tube ride, like you would do at an amusement park, at a water park.
Yeah, like a lazy river type.
Like a lazy river, yeah. So you put your things in and it's a spring. So it's like this beautiful like blues and greens. And then there's a beach there and then you ride it around. There's otters that are swimming.
Oh. Wait, so did you see
gators.
See any scary wildlife?
No, I don't know. They say that they don't go there because it's clear water, but then other people say they do, and it seems to be controversial. But we've done it a lot of times, and We've not been attacked.
I think it's unlikely that you would be attacked. I just am not sure I could like keep my chill with a gator in any vicinity.
So no one can really swim in those places then. Is that how it works?
Yeah, no. I mean, no, people do.
Okay.
People definitely do.
I was about to say, don't you have water on your property?
Yeah, we have lakes on our property, and our property butts up to a river.
Would you swim in that?
Would I? No.
Yes.
Absolutely not. Do other people? Sure. I mean, the river that we live on is people swim in it and like go and like not camp, but like set up, for a day on the bank of the river and swim in it and whatever you do at the river for a day. But would I do? No, I would not. But I am truthfully terrified of snakes. And I swear to goodness, if I was like sitting on the side if I was sitting by the river and a snake came up, it would ruin me for like the rest of my life. Not to be dramatic. All right, Christine, your turn. What would you do for a day outside with your family?
I know. I had to actually really think about this because I think if you were to ask me just like right now, I would probably say walk and picnic. But if we're talking about really anything, give me a beach. Put me on the sand. I can walk on the beach. I can swim in the water.
What if the water has alligators?
I know, right?
I mean, not if it's salt water.
I know, right? I'm thinking
like ocean.
Yeah, ocean. I'm thinking Cancun, Mexico.
Oh.
Yes.
Beautiful ocean.
This is what I'm thinking in my head. Daydreaming about.
You should come visit me, which is not as beautiful of an ocean.
I also like your beach. You have a beautiful beach as well.
It's just, so I will tell this story about our beach. I was reading a story to my daughter the other day, and in the story, they came across a beach and it was beautiful and blue. And my daughter goes, but the ocean isn't blue. She's like, it's green or sometimes brown. And I was like, I mean, you're not wrong. Like, most of the Atlantic is pretty gross.
Yeah.
So, okay. So for me, I'm going to be the one who's devil's advocating on this podcast because I am not a huge outdoorsy person.
Ooh.
And, to me, sitting out, like, I like hiking. So maybe we would do that. But then, like, we're dealing with my kids complaining, and that sounds terrible too. So
I know. I can't wait to hear what Ginny has to say about that.
Me too.
I'm making notes.
Oh, good. All right.
I'll be ready.
So Ginny, can you tell us how many kids you have? What are their ages? A brief backstory on why you decided 1,000 hours was a good idea.
Yeah, Corey's like, why on earth?
It's a great idea.
It's a great idea. Tell me why.
It is a great idea.
I want to know why you what got you here.
I'm not an outdoorsy person either. So there we go. We are just the same. I mean, I would much rather look at my background. I would much rather be indoors reading. I like to play the piano. I like to do puzzles. Like I grew up, well, because I am in Gen X. We don't know, but grew up with less screens. I've got a brother that was born in 1986. So, it was a little bit different for him. Like I remember he was instant messaging with friends on the computer. And
Middle
I was
school.
like, that's what he was doing. So there are differences there. But when I grew up and probably my brothers too, there was just not as much homework. I don't think school was quite as long. And there wasn't as much on TV. So we didn't grow up with cable, and we had a Nintendo for like 2 weeks, and then my parents got rid of it because it was causing too many fights. So we grew up without video games for the most part, and without like TV that was constantly available, and people played outside. And 1,000 hours actually would have been considered very normal. That's historically normal. It's probably actually really pretty low in comparison to generations past where kids just played outside. So we've got 5 kids, and they are ages 17, 15, 14, 11, and I'm not quite sure. I don't know.
Younger than that.
She's 9. She's 9. Our niece just had a birthday, so I got confused. Okay, they're like a year apart. She's 9, and the niece is 8. Okay, The youngest one's 9. Like she'll be 10 next year, which is crazy. So, I just struggled as a young mom. That's my story. And I did not expect for it to be as all-consuming and exhausting. I don't know. Like, I don't know. That message doesn't really come across. You're like, oh, you have a baby. Like, what are you going to do with the baby all day? I had worked up until that point, so I was used to these kind of full days. I taught high school. And I just didn't know that, like, he wasn't going to sleep and he was going to nurse constantly. And, everything was just going to be, I felt like so hard. It was so shocking to me how hard it was. And I was expecting to do a schedule because a bunch of my friends put their babies on a schedule, which, like, I've learned a lot since then. And I don't necessarily agree with that philosophy at this point anymore. But like when you're young and you don't have a baby, you're like, well, I'll just do what my friends do. So I literally had it planned out. I was like, at 8:00, we're going to do this. And then he's going to sleep. And then at 10:00, it was like these 2-hour time increments. They're supposed to sleep every 2 hours. And he didn't sleep at all. It was like just nursed.
Yeah.
Like, what is this? And cry, nursed and cried, nursed and cried. So then we had another one, and they were like pretty close in age. And I hated it. I hated it. They were so cute and I love them so much, but I was so unbelievably overwhelmed. Like they're crying and it's morning to night and through the night and people are up. My husband's gone for, 10 hours, got an 8-hour workday plus commute or whatever, just so wildly different. My life swung in this different direction and I didn't know what to do for 10 hours. That's kind of a long time when you have a baby. Like, what are you supposed to do for 10 hours with a 1-year-old? So I did like programs because that's what everybody else was doing. Like the Music Mommy and Me and Little Kickers and whatever all the things are, the library. They're awful. I mean, sorry if you're a librarian, but like, it's so much effort. And maybe because there was 3 of them, but so much effort for me to get my kids to the library. It's so much effort. I'm like physically exhausted. I'm carrying like a couple of those bucket things. And like, I got the library bag that you got the stroller that's got to fit 3 kids. And like, you're trying to get them all out. You have to buckle them all. They all are in different clothes. They all have different snacks that they use. Like they don't want to be at the library. They just don't, they're like fighting with the other kid. They're taking the toy. At our library, they would like dump a bucket of toys out on the floor at the end. And I was like, why do you do that?
Oh, no.
I'm like on the side nursing a baby. So if my kid's fighting over someone with a red truck, it just was awful. And then it would be like 11:15 a.m. I was like, well, I'm done already.
Yeah, totally.
I've hit my limit. I'm like, someone probably saw my boob already. I don't know. I wouldn't even drink water because I was like, I don't totally know how I would use the restroom. Like, what should I do? If I'm at the library and I have to use the restroom, I'm like, can someone please take all 3 of my kids? Or like, I wouldn't even drink water. So I really, really struggled. And that was like my everyday. I would dread going to bed because I was like, I know I'm not going to get rest and I'm going to be exhausted tomorrow. There was no break. There's like no light at the end of the tunnel. The kids are super clingy. So they didn't even, for a long time, wouldn't even want to go to my husband. Certainly wouldn't go to grandparents, We had loving family, but they like just wanted me. I was like, why do you like me so much? This is not a short story. This is kind of a long story.
But I love this because it's so relatable.
Like, can you do it shortly? I'm like,
no, keep going.
I'm almost done. So basically what happened was I was doing MOPS, which is now called something else.
Yes, I know exactly what this is.
MomCo.
Yeah.
And that was like, you're supposed to drop your kids off for 2 hours twice a month. You get 4 hours of respite. And my kids would not last. I was the one where they bring the screaming baby back in 12 minutes. And I'd be like, oh, like no one else has their baby with them. But my friend at MOPS, so we homeschool. And my friend at MOPS, she was going to homeschool too. She already knew. And her oldest was 1 year older. So she did all the research. I was like, this is fantastic. Just tell me everything that you're learning. So she came to MOPS one day and she said, hey, I've been reading and Charlotte Mason says that kids should be outside for 4 to 6 hours a day whenever the weather is tolerable. I was like, what? What? I was like, have you been to the library program? Like this would be like that, but 4 times longer and kind of awful. That's what I was thinking. I had all these negative thoughts. So like Corey, when you're like, I'm not an outdoorsy person, I had all these negative thoughts because I thought, well, that's stupid. That's a stupid idea. I didn't say it because when you're a really young mom and you're like, I have no friends anymore and I can't even have a conversation because my baby's crying and will anybody even like me? So you just kind of like, you just nod and you're like, that's nice. But Charlotte Mason is dead and She's been dead for a very
And she
long
didn't
time.
have children anyway.
I know.
Yeah,
Isn't that crazy
she
how
died
that
a long
happens?
time ago. But do you know that my friend did not tell me that? She wasn't like, hey, I've been reading this Charlotte Mason from the 1800s. I would have been like, well, I have no interest. It's 2020 or whatever. So she didn't say that. And I'm like, Charlotte is a really common name. Like if she would have been like Edna, then, maybe I would
That's
have
my
known.
grandmother's name.
Yeah. So there we go. I'm like,
Exactly.
and my name's Virginia. People are like, how are you still alive? But the Charlotte Mason has been gone for a really long time. She didn't tell me that. I didn't find that out till years later. So she says, Charlotte Mason says kids should be outside for 4 to 6 hours when the weather's tolerable. Okay, that's good because you're in Georgia and I'm in Michigan, and like sometimes the weather is not tolerable, but it was the fall. And so the fall is beautiful. And so then she followed it up with, we should try it. I was like, I don't think so. I don't think that we should try that. I'm like, the kids, like they don't pay. Like if I get out Play-Doh, they're going to play with it for 7 minutes and then it's going to be all over my floor. And then I got to go into the next thing, into the next thing. I was like, what the heck are they going to do for 4 hours? But I didn't say that either. I just thought that. And I just said, yeah, sure. Cause I like wanted to build friendships. And so we went to this park in 2011. In the fall, September of 2011. So here it is. What is it? 2025. So it's been a long time. Yeah.
Because when my son was born.
Yeah. 14 years ago. Yeah. I even taught math. So that took me a while to get there. That was really good. In high school, actually, that's what I taught. That's simple subtraction.
It's okay.
All
it's
right.
only because my son's birthday is literally, he was born in September in 2011.
And he's 14.
Yeah.
So back when you were giving labor, I was at a park and
also in labor.
Yeah. Well, but I wasn't. And that's the whole thing. I thought that this was going to be the worst day. And this friend of mine, she's like all reading up on Charlotte Mason. She's like, Charlotte Mason says, and I'm like, well, okay, what? Charlotte Mason says you shouldn't bring anything. I was like, you don't bring anything. What are the kids going to do? I'm like, I probably should bring the book bag I just got from the library and like my train table, right? Like, balls and crafts. What am I supposed to bring stuff? We're going for 4 hours. What are they going to do? And she's like, no, don't bring anything. Just a blanket and food. I was like, oh gosh, this is going to be the worst, the absolute worst. So I show up at this park at 9 a.m. Now, I think there's a difference between a park and a playground. A playground has a play structure. A park is just like grass. There's like nothing here, And this was a park. There wasn't even a play structure. So we're going to spread out our blankets. And there was a little creek that ran through and a little bridge and big trees. I mean, it was beautiful. But I thought, oh gosh, like 4 hours of drudgery, 4 hours of awful. Like these kids are going to be like, I'm bored. Anyway, it did not turn out to be that. It turned out to be, I tell people, the best day of my life because it was the first good day I had as a mom. The first. My oldest was 3. I had not had a good day as a mom. And what happened was they just played. Who knew? They played. I didn't have to bring anything. They ran. I don't even know what they did. I just sat on this blanket and I had a baby and she had a baby and the baby would nurse. The baby would sleep when the baby wanted to sleep. There's like all this wind blowing and the trees and the leaves and like the babies were good. And I got to have a conversation and the kids just ran around and they would come and get food when they were hungry and then they would run off and they chased each other and they chased squirrels and they were like, look at me and I'm doing this. And by 1:00 we were packing up and they all fell asleep on the way home at the same time. 3 kids. I was like, that's a miracle. And it was like, by the time my husband got home, it had only been a couple hours of like that sort of in between 3 to 6 where you're kind of trying to figure out what you're going to do for dinner and how do you manage these kids. And it completely changed the way I mothered because I had a good day. And I wasn't even in the know about how good getting outside is for kids. I just thought I had a good day. I can be more present. I can be more calm. And if we can kind of turn the ship around, then our family will be different. So in 2011, in September, we changed what we were doing for early childhood. So instead of pulling my hair out to go to this program and that program, and you take your kids to the swim thing, I was like, well, 2 kids can swim and 1 kid can't because they're not in the right age group. And the one that is supposed to go in doesn't want to go in and everyone's slippery. And then I'm like, this is so hard. I'm so tired. And you go outside and it was just completely different. So that's where it started. And it changed my whole trajectory of motherhood, the whole thing. And I learned really quickly that this simple act of going outside, you don't have to bring anything. The simple act, it helps kids to develop holistically. So it helps them with their emotional health, helps them with their social skills, which are very important in this day and age with rapid job change. So is emotional health, because the world is a little cuckoo. It helps them with their physical health, and in more ways than you would ever know, like down to their bone structure, down to the way their eyes function, down to moving their lymphatic system. Our kids have not needed a doctor's appointment since 2011. We have 5 of them. And then it helps them with their cognition. So academically, this is helping their brain wire, and the movement helps their brain wire. In fact, there is a statistic that says elderly people who dance regularly have a 76% less chance of developing dementia, which is a huge stat. That is a huge, huge stat. If that were available in a pill, everyone would take it. There is not one person on earth that would say, I don't want that. Everybody wants a 76% less chance of developing dementia, and it's from dancing. And it's because complex movements enhance and protect the neural wiring. So this is helping your kids' cognition. And then for those families that are interested, I believe God's spiritual lessons are displayed in creation. And so it's a vehicle for you to teach spiritual lessons to your children as well. It's holistic. So while that's happening, it's also helping you as a parent, and you're also building foundational memories together. So it started there. It started from Charlotte Mason, no longer alive, 4 to 6 hours a day, and doing it one time. I just did it once. And it was with a friend. I don't think it works if it's just you and your kids, because they're annoyed with each other and their siblings, and they're going to bug you. But if you can bring a friend, one, that's all you need. And they got someone else to kind of run around with, they will get lost in their imagination. And I think it's how parenting and childhood is supposed to be.
I think it's so interesting that you mentioned you didn't go to a playground. You went to a park.
Yeah.
As you were laying out the story, I envisioned a playground.
Mm-hmm.
And slides and whatever.
And a playground would be somewhat stressful depending on the age of your kids.
Yeah.
Because if the kids were really close in age, so I think they were 3 and 1 in 6 months. If I have a 1-year-old at a playground, I've got to kind of be on top of that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That they're going to fall. And playgrounds also get boring for older kids. So I actually think that the nature, it's just the nature. What did they found pine cones, and they threw things, and they threw rocks into the creek. And it was the nature that engaged them. And you hear people say that a lot. Like, I took my kids to the playground and they played in the mulch. There's something about the open-endedness of nature that engages children. And the playgrounds are great too. We go to those sometimes. But I've always felt that just plain old nature is the most engaging and the easiest.
Yeah. Wow.
What do you think, Corey? What do you think about Charlotte?
What do I think? I actually love Charlotte Mason. I love a lot of what she says. I think she has some really, we don't really subscribe to any specific style of homeschooling, but we do. I take a lot from Charlotte Mason, but, so I don't know. There's a lot to, I love your story. First of all, you're an amazing storyteller. So this is so fun. But I am curious about because for me, right, I live in the boonies. We don't really have a lot of people around. And for me to be able to go somewhere to find a park would take a effort. I'm trying to think of, is there even a park somewhere that doesn't have a playground?
I know. I was literally thinking the same thing. I'm racking my brain trying to think about I will say this actually. So I live in a suburb. I'm one of those people that, lives in just your normal suburb. And in our neighborhood, there is a plain, my kids literally call it the plain grassy area. It's just a plain grassy area. And
that sounds like a kid's book. You should write that book.
I know, right? It is literally just called the plain grassy area. And they'll spend hours out there throwing. Most of the time when they're out there, they're throwing a ball, and they're just making up ball games. They're pretending either football or soccer or whatever, but all they have is the ball out there. Wow. And when my youngest couldn't participate in these ball games, there's these bushes, and he would just pick the leaves off the bushes while they would play. And there's 2 playgrounds in my neighborhood, and they won't play on the playgrounds, but they go to the plain grassy area the most. So yeah. I can see it now. I believe it.
So I will say
nature engages them.
when I was a kid, I was also homeschooled. We lived in a remote, semi-remote area. And we had another homeschool family that lived across the street. So it was like remote enough, but there were still other families. And we would spend hours in the woods, right?
Yeah.
Or at the creek. Or, yeah, that's it. Mostly in the woods or at the creek. And so when I was a kid, that was like completely normal.
Yeah.
You know,
totally.
TV was never on unless my dad was at home. And it was such a great way to grow up. But like for me as a parent who up until my oldest was maybe, how old was he when we moved? We moved into a house that actually had outdoor space. So before that we had lived in like tiny little apartments or townhouses or something like that. And it was effort to go outside. So until my oldest was in kindergarten, we had lived in these little places and going outside was effort. Like I had to drive somewhere to be outside.
Mm-hmm.
And that always, maybe that was kind of like where some of that came from. Cause it was like, I had to go find an outdoor place. You know, I couldn't, there was no just yard to go to. Where we live now, we have tons of space. But there are no other people for the kids to be out there with. Mm-hmm. It's just them. And it's a fight to get them to go out there and spend a lot of time outside.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about, yes, I want to hear your thoughts on
take up
fighting
the fight.
The kids to go outside.
That's what I would say. I say you take up the fight. Well, I think you guys brought up a couple of really good points. So one is that this really looks different depending on where you live. And we have lived in a lot of different places as well. So we've lived in a townhome with no yard. We've lived in a suburb with a small yard. And we have lived in the country with, a larger piece of property. And there are benefits to all of them. If you live in a place that's highly populated, you're in an apartment or you're in a city, it's walkable. And actually, Dan Buettner, who does all this research about living to be into your hundreds to centenarians, and he talks about the blue zones, he actually says the best thing that you could ever do is live in a walkable city. So a lot of people talk about the city as being not ideal for going outside, but I've got a brother that lives in Brooklyn, and there are little parks and playgrounds all over the place, and you're out and you're walking, and there's birds and there's trees. There is nature there. There's nature everywhere. There's a man who wrote, he's from PBS, and he wrote How to Raise a Wild Child, and his name is Scott Sampson. And he says, nature's everywhere. It's coming up between the cracks of the sidewalk. Like you can't get away from it. So there's some benefits to being in a city, a walkable city, an apartment, a populated area where you could find a playground or a park that's not that far. If you're in the suburb, you're not in the walkable city.
No, but I was in like an apartment in the suburbs.
So, okay. So then in the suburb, there's going to be some parks. There's always, parks in the suburbs. There's, they're built into the city or whatever it is, township area. And in that suburb, there's usually more kids. And so maybe there's an opportunity to grab a neighbor or something like that, but to your point, it's like, it's not necessarily easy. A lot of kids are busy. A lot of kids are inside doing screens. This is really different from the 1960s when no house had air conditioning and maybe you had 7 siblings and your home was 1,200 square feet. So you don't want to be inside and there aren't that many toys. So out you go. And all the other 80 kids on the street are outside too. So there's tons of people to play with. It is harder. It is much harder. The other situation is maybe you're out in the country and there's no one to play with. And that is difficult in its own way. So none of the situations are ideal and none of the situations are without effort. But here's what I found, because for a while, Corey, I was like kind of jealous. I thought there were moms when I was growing up that just kicked their kids outside and locked the door all summer. They would say, don't come back. So I'm like, okay, well, that seems great. Like, what are they doing in there? These moms are just inside, no kids. It's calm. It's quiet. And I thought, gosh, if I would have just been a mom a couple decades ago, this would have been my situation. But I do believe now that my life has been enhanced tremendously by going along. I think the effort is that you have to go along. It has changed. It's no longer kick the kid out the door and lock it, and they're going to come back in 6 hours for dinner. You have to figure it out. You have to meet with someone. You have to find what parks are in your area, and you often have to go. And what I found was that made my life a lot richer, especially in a heavily technological age. I mean, the moms in the 80s and the 90s weren't dealing with the EMFs and the blue lights and the screen things and the draw, even the work that never ends. Like, none of those moms were dealing with that. All of the moms today are dealing with that. In some capacity. They're dealing with the effects of technology. So I actually think it's kind of worked out perfect that we have to be involved because we need it too. Maybe Charlotte Mason would say that today. You know, kids should be outside for 4 to 6 hours, and maybe adults need to be out too, you know, for a lengthy period of time for your optimal health and well-being because of the heavily screen saturated culture that we're in.
Yeah. Yeah. As you were saying that, I'm envisioning, okay, so the parent that works all day and has kids in school, what if they picked up kids from school, packed like a sack dinner, you know, whatever
There you
that
go,
is,
Christine. That's
sandwiches,
it.
something, whatever, grab a blanket, go to a park, and kids finish homework outside.
That's
When they're
right.
done with homework, they can play. You eat outside and you come home at like 6 or 7 o'clock, and you've got a good solid, if you're lucky, 2 hours outside.
Yeah, Christine. I mean, that's the way to do it. And a lot of parents do that. I actually talk to parents who say, when I pick my kid up from school, we don't leave right away. Then they don't have to deal with a pickup line, right? So they're going to say, I'm just going to go. And when they come out, because once the school day is over, those parks are up for grabs because it's like anyone's allowed to go to school parks, like especially in the
Wait. Hold on.
Yeah,
anyone's allowed to go to a public school playground?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Yep.
What do you mean? Yes, of course.
Oh, totally.
As long as it's not during the school day, you can always get in. It's never fenced off. And so there's always a way to get in. So we'll do in the summer, we'll go park hop, especially when our kids were younger. It's like, we'll go to this elementary school, to that elementary school, to that elementary school. You could even do that. Like, Christine, what an idea. What if you did that? Because if you're in a place where there's a lot of elementary schools, you could say on Monday afternoons, we go to this elementary school, and on Tuesday afternoons. So right when the school day's over, if you have stuff with you, and they can play, and you could sit and read a book, or you could walk around the park. You could play with your kids on the park, the playground, whatever. So there are parents that don't go home right away, even if they stay for 45 minutes. The kids get to run and play on that playground for a little bit longer. Recess is only 22 minutes on average in the United States. All day, 22 minutes. So they've hardly gotten a chance to play on that playground. So you say, we're going to stay for 45 minutes. Are there any other families that want to stay too?
Yeah.
Then you got mixed age out there. It's a great way to do it. So if you live in an apartment, or if you live, somewhere else, and maybe moms could rotate through, because if you've got to work, but can you get there one day? If some moms are working later, they can't make it. Some dads, then maybe you kind of swap it out. Not every single parent has to be there every single time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. So I feel like you figured this out fairly young in your mothering journey, but I get the sense that you have this like urgency. Kids have to be outside. Why do you think it's so important for them to be outside?
They have to be outside. They have to be outside. They cannot not be outside. It is because time outside is what helps them develop. So you can't skip it. They will have detriments, and those might show up in a lot of different ways. But people are talking about that the lines for physical therapy, the wait list for this, this therapy and that therapy and this situation, they're astronomical, and it all changed. People say different dates. Between 2010 and 2014. 2012 is usually the date. Like, if you talk to these different therapists, they'll say in 2012, something changed. Well, what was it? Like, that was the tipping point for screens. But it's like, now the majority of families have screens, and all of a sudden we just have access to these things in our pockets. And kids need that time for their development. So they have to roll around. They have to develop their vestibular sense. The vestibular sense is this cornerstone foundational sense that every other sense builds on. And it is activated primarily by getting your head out of an upright position. So you have to activate this vestibular sense so that it can develop. What happens when that's not developed is kids are clumsy. They have to spend all of this time keeping themselves upright. They have to think about it. So they're falling out of their chairs. The teachers will say, if I've got 40 kids a week that fall out of chairs in my classroom, they just fall out. They don't, and they don't, because they just don't know. And it's sad because they are having to spend so much time just dealing with their body that they can't learn. The ramifications are really long. So that's one thing. And if you think about children, that's just one piece of it. But if you think about children that are free, that are outdoors and they've got space to run around, they do all sorts of things to get their heads out of an upright position. And you don't have to tell them to do that. They hang upside down on the monkey bars. They cartwheel, they somersault, they swing and they throw their heads back. They tire swing, they spin. They're doing all of these different motions. They are biologically designed. Peter Gray says it this way, to self-educate, but they're biologically designed to develop in the ways that their bodies know what to do. And so by keeping them indoors and not giving them access to those different things, they don't have the opportunity to do that. And so they're people use the words they're being stunted. Or I talked to this woman yesterday who had interviewed, and this was in our book, like this a therapist, and she says the kids are broken. She said 50% of the kids she sees now are broken children. They're not reaching their potential because they have to be outside. This would be enough. There's so many little ones that kind of add up to the big picture, but here's another one. There's this woman named Katie Bowman. And she's a biomechanist, and she says osteoporosis is a childhood disease that shows up in adulthood. And what she means is that when kids are little, they naturally, if you give them the time and space, they jump and they land. So I remember our little kids, they would climb up onto the curb and they would jump off, and they would do it over and over and over and over again. And then they would go up on something a little bit higher, a fallen log. They would jump off. They would get themselves up, balance, and jump off. Then they're getting up on the hay bale. Then so what's happening every time they have impact is that it's strengthening their skeletal system. Every impact. Now, I never once had to say, why don't you get up on that curb and jump off so you can work on your skeletal system? They do it naturally. That's how they're designed. So jump and land, jump and land. Well, we got kids that are sitting 8 hours, 9 hours a day. They're sitting to go to practice. They're sitting to play video games. They're sitting for school. They're not getting that load, the load-bearing work on their bones. So these are ramifications that not only are short-term, the caseworkers are like, there's so many kids I can't even keep up with. 50% of the people I see, the children I see, are broken children for no reason other than they're not getting what they need. They're not getting the inputs they need. And then there's long-term. There's long-term, like, what is your skeletal system like when you're 50 years old? And so much of that is set during childhood. And no one had to talk about this before. I think that's the confusion. The confusion is that the Gen X moms and earlier, no one had to have the conversations because it was naturally woven into society. Off you go outside because there isn't as much to do inside and everyone else is outside. And people had to drag their kids in. They had to yell and yell and yell and say, time to come in. I have a book. It's called Until the Streetlights Come On. This was the norm. That was like, you got to play, that you lost track of time. You're not out there with a watch. It's like when the streetlights come on, that's when you go back in. And this was the norm. And so no mom had to know, well, this is going to be good for my kids' cognition. They didn't have to know that because it was naturally woven into society. And when that changed and then kids started to have exceptional struggles. We're talking mental health. We're talking social skills. We're talking all sorts of struggles. That's when the information swell has started to become really important, that no, this is imperative.
It's so fascinating to hear that because I do feel like we're kind of lost as a human species. Like we are so disconnected from our natural development and world that we're having to talk about this. We're having to actually talk about being outside because we don't get outside enough. And we're talking about our kids jumping off of the curb and how important that is. And it's just funny to me that this is a conversation we have to have because we are that lost as humans.
And I think it makes sense, right? No one had the information because no one needed the information. I think you only need the information when it starts to turn south. And then you're like, wait a minute, what's going on here? Why are so many of these kids struggling? And then you find it, and then you have it to pass on to your kids. My kids know why it's important to go outside. They know about the full spectrum sunlight. They have all of these pieces that I didn't have. I didn't know about the vestibular sense. I'd never even heard that word in my life. So I agree with you, Christine. I think the lost comes from the fact that society changed very rapidly. And in there wasn't the information that was needed because it never was needed before.
Yeah.
It makes me a little nostalgic, like talking about,
yes,
like the kids running around with the bikes in the neighborhood. And I don't particularly like this show, but the early season was okay. What's it called? Stranger Things, where there's that whole scene in like the very beginning of the kids just riding their bikes, and they're just like riding their bikes all over the place. And the only way that somebody figures out something is wrong is because there's an unclaimed bike, and somebody's like, some adult was like, these bikes are like Ferraris to kids. Like they would never leave this,
right?
Overnight and abandoned. And it makes me so nostalgic to remember that, like that were just out on our bikes or playing soccer in the middle of the neighborhood. Our when I was growing up in our neighborhood, we lived on a street when I was in middle school, and we would play football in the middle of the street until there was a car, and then you just yell "car" and everybody get out of the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't see kids doing that. And is it like a lot of it is parents are scared to let their kids be outside?
So that's the other piece of this conversation that we have to talk about. There is this fear of kids have to be watched all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And even in our neighborhood, for example, which, we have several neighborhood kids that my, kids play with, but they've got Apple Watches on, or they've got a phone on them or something, because even though, and I actually, full transparency, I live in a gated neighborhood. Like there's nothing, they're fine in this neighborhood. They're not going anywhere past the neighborhood. And parents are still making sure that they have a read on their children, no matter where they are. I don't know, Ginny, what do you say to that?
I think fear sells. I mean, that's what everyone says, right? Fear sells. So there's a lot of money to be made off of a parent's fear. And it is trickier. To your point, you both brought up, it's like playing outside when you're a kid, there's safety in numbers. Your kid is out there with a bunch of the neighborhood kids. And there is safety in that because there's community. And here, it's 10 kids out there. So there's maybe a couple moms that are poking their head out the window here and there just to make sure everything is okay. And that doesn't happen anymore. It is interesting if you really think about mothering. Up until very recently, mothering was very hands-off. It was very hands-off. If you're outside playing football in the street and then you yell car, I mean, that mom had however many hours of respite from dealing with siblings fighting. So it was a little calmer, I think. And that could be a reason why everyone's so confused now and everyone's so lost, like you said, Christine, because mothering has to be a lot more hands-on than it was. There was hours and hours and hours of hands-off mothering. And so then it's like, well, yeah, give them the iPad. I mean, because mothering was hands-off. Give them the screen. There are not that many kids playing outside. So the fear piece, obviously that's the media and all of that. But I would say, like, we don't track our kids. And we've got ones that drive. And so that's actually a pretty unique thing today.
That is. Wow. Wait, you got to talk a little bit more about that, because everybody I know that has kids that drive, they've got a GPS tracker on them.
No, we do not track our kids. I think that there's two things about it. And I actually just read a wonderful book called Fly. Oh, I'm going to tell you what it is so people can read it. And it's called, I'm looking at my phone. So hold on one second. But okay, so I'll talk about that. First of all, when you track, that makes you a lot more stressed out because you're constantly checking. You lose your innate trust in your kids and in the world. No one tracked us, and you just trusted that they were going to come home when they said they were going to come home. And occasionally, are there tragedies in the world? Yeah, there are. But the vast majority of the time, you came home, you were at work, you came home, you drove to wherever your friend's house, you came home. And when you have that capability to check, it just makes you more stressed out because you're constantly checking. It's an anxiety. It's like the anxiety. It makes it worse. It makes it way worse. I am so calm. And we had to make that decision, like right off the bat, like, hey, I'm going to work. I think the first day our oldest had his driver's license, he had work. And then he was like, I'm going to stop and get food on the way. And I had this thought, like, I should be watching that car. I should be, I'm not, but I'm not doing it. And this book, I just read it and it just came out in May. And she says, first of all, kids have to drive at 16. Let them drive when they're 16. She says parents are experiencing anxiety, but she says if parents don't trust their teenager to drive, they are sending the teenager a message that they aren't capable. So here's what she said. There's 3 ages where a kid starts to grow into independence. It's 2, and it's 9, and it's 16. Those are those 3 ages that naturally like gain more independence, and you have to let them do it. Otherwise, if there's lack of trust from the parent, it fractures what's called self-trust so that they don't trust in themselves. So this is a culmination, she says, of years enabling your children up until she's really like a straight shooter. But then she says, so many parents, even after allowing their teenagers to drive, can't fully let them go. And it sends a message that they can't be trusted. Teenagers 16 and over should not be tracked. They should be trusted.
Oof.
If you are a parent who doesn't feel your child can be trusted, then you have some work to do.
Oh, yeah.
But you can see how if you're constantly checking, how that would make you a more anxious person. And I think this is maybe one of the cruxes of the issue. There's a man named Dr. William Stixred who writes these books with this man named Ned Johnson, and they're about being a self-driven child. And this is one of the probably a key issue of today is that kids are not self-driven. There's failure to launch. Your adult child is accumulation of all the small decisions that you make when they're 2 and 4 and 7 all the way through. And so what they talk about is that lack of control is one of the things that leads to the most anxiety that you could have. You have lack of control. You don't have control over your life. And so parenting is naturally anxiety inducing because you're not in control. That is a human being. Now you're going to try and help them be safe and those types of things, but you are not in control. They are their own person. And so you have anxiety because you are not in control. And the child has anxiety because they're a child and they're not fully in control. And so what we're doing is we're choosing our own comfort to have less anxiety, to be more in control over them. We're choosing us over them.
Oh,
and it is causing
fascinating.
Broken children. Gosh. They have to be trusted. And
Whoa.
that happens little by little. It happens outdoors. It happens when your child falls and they get a scrape or they get a little bruise and you comfort them, but you've let them grow. You've let them take the reins of their life a little bit. And it really adds up. That's what I would say as a mom of a 17-year-old. It adds up and you see it. And then the professors talk about there are all sorts of kids coming to college that can't make simple decisions without texting their parents. There's a book out. It's called What Time is Noon. Have you heard of it?
No.
Wait, pause for just a second. You have to say the other book that you had mentioned.
The other one
before.
that you were quoting from.
You didn't give us a title.
I just quoted the book. Okay, the author is Nicole Runyon, and it came out in May, and it is called Free to Fly, The Secret to Fostering Independence in the Next Generation. Free to Fly, The Secret to Fostering Independence in the Next Generation, Nicole Runyon. I brought up Peter Gray. His book is Free to Learn. I brought up another one just a second ago, and it is, I lost my train of thought. Oh, Stixred, Self-Driven Child. The Self-Driven, They're all fantastic.
Okay, now this new one. Everybody will leave this episode with a whole book list.
Yes, good. You know what you have to read? I don't think that you can be the parent that you want to be and the person you want to be in this day and age without reading, because social media is the greatest conformity engine ever created. And so we're all being shoved down the same path. And when you were talking about the ancestral wisdom, you're not going to naturally have that. You have to read. You have to spend a little bit of time. If it's a chapter a day, that's going to add up to probably 40 books in a year. One chapter a day. Can you find it? I think you can. And you start going down these book lists and you have something to talk about. You have something to think about, and you have things that you can try to help enhance your family because it matters. All right. Can I go on to the other one?
Yeah, please.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Go. It's called What Time is Noon. It's by a man named Chip Layton. So it came out, I think, last year. And it's a funny book. And the premise of the book is that teenagers can now text their parents. And so they're texting all of these kind of ridiculous things. And he is like the congregator for all of these different texts. It's funny. It's funny, right, Christine? So
Yes,
the kids, what time is noon is an example of a text that a teenager might send their parents. So he's got this whole book of them. And they'll say things like, I'm at the grocery store and I can't find the pasta water. Or if I use eggs from different cartons, is my meal going to taste funny? And this is what they're sending their parents. They don't have what animal is a soy? They just don't have the. I know. Yes. It's funny and also kind of horrifying at the same time. It's almost like a modern day Amelia Bedelia. He'll give a story about
my daughter's favorite story.
The girl, this parent sends in and they're like, I came downstairs and my daughter was making brownies and she had her hand in the bowl. And I was like, why is your hand in the bowl? And she says, it says mixed by hand on the box. I mean, it is modern day Amelia Bedelia, but he has a section for college students and they're saying things like, am I a member of clergy? They're having to fill out forms. Did grandma have any children? It's like a whole thing.
No.
And one of the ones.
Wait, are these real?
They're real texts. So he's congregating. People are sending them to him. So the one that was a real kicker, this is where we're at as a society. This is college. And the kid sends the text to the parents. Well, it's a young adult, sends a text to the parent and says, how do I get my clothes out of the washing machine and into the dryer? Do I just use my hands?
No, I don't believe that. What? Oh my gosh. This is the world we live in.
It's the accumulation of small choices year over year.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Look at that.
Yep. You got to trust your kids.
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah, honestly, going back to the car thing, I'm still several years away from that. And the older parents that I know that are already doing that have shown me how they have an app on their phone that not only tracks their kids, but it also tracks their driving. It tracks how the child drives so that they know. And so basically,
speed limit.
Exactly. So they know if their child is speeding or if they've skipped run a red light or something like that. And then the parent can quote unquote ground them or remove privileges, things like that based on how their child is driving. And I'm not going to lie, when I first heard that, I was like, oh, that's actually a really good idea because then, you can make sure that your child is driving safe. And now I'm hearing a different side of the story from you, Ginny. And
it's challenging you because it's right.
It's totally challenging me. It is.
The point is for the child to grow up. And when they are 16, they are almost an adult. The point is, and it is what this Nicole Runyon is talking about, it is undermining their trust in themselves. Nobody wants to be tracked all the time. Nobody wants to be monitored all the time because we are free, sovereign human beings. And that starts young. And you have to allow them to grow up. That is the job. And it's hard. I also think that is a piece of it that Christine, I want to keep track. I want, at some level, I would imagine that there are moms, even myself, that will be like, you know what? It would be really nice if my kid did call me from college and was like, what should I have for dinner? Mom, help me with this. Because that's what you've been doing the whole time. You want to be needed. You want to be their person. But that is not what parenting is supposed to be. And that leaves them dependent. And there is this natural time at 16 when they are breaking off, and you have to let them do it. She says this, I'll read it. I just read it. I just talked to her yesterday. So that's why I have this notes right in front of me. She says, it is dangerous out in the world, but it is more dangerous for your older children to stay with you safe and protected at home. Not going out into the world and experiencing life will prevent them from fully launching, and those consequences are greater. She even says so many kids at 16 are not driving. She says, if you are continuing to enable them by driving them around after they are 16, at some point, and it's never too late, you have to let go and surrender your feelings of fear.
Did you ever listen to an episode of Ma'am and wish you could keep the conversation going? That, my friends, is why we created the Modern Ancestral Mamas Patreon community.
When you join our Patreon community, you're not just supporting the podcast, You're gaining access to a private community of like-minded women who are navigating ancestral living in the modern world right alongside you. As a member, you'll receive free ebooks and downloadable resources, including things like cookbooks and practical guides to help you actually implement what we talk about all the time on the show.
You'll also get exclusive Q&As with Christine and I, and sometimes with our guests, where we answer your personal questions and go deeper into the topics that matter most to you. Plus, you'll hear the bonus content that we have with our guests, extra conversations, and insights you won't find anywhere else.
If you are craving that connection, more support, and more depth, then we want you to join us. Head over to patreon.com/Modern Ancestral Mamas and come be a part of the community.
I will say, from my husband moved out of his house at 18, and he was one of the, like, their family was very like, make the kids do all the chores that they can do. They like made their own food, all of this stuff. Now, some of that is, there's like lots of things going on there, but like my family, I went to college. I was 19 when I went to college, and like moved out and went to college. And I lived, at college and did all those things. I do remember calling my mom and asking her how to make homemade macaroni and cheese, not like from a box, but like homemade. But I mean, for the most part, I knew how to cook things. I just didn't know how to make that one thing. And but I'm thinking about like,
how do you make homemade mac and cheese?
How do you make
for those of us who are wondering?
I have a recipe. You can go on my Instagram and find it.
For sure, Corey has a recipe for that.
But so what I'm thinking about is like, I went to college, but I was like still very much under my parents' umbrella. And my husband moved out like the day he possibly was legally allowed to move out, like moved into an apartment, didn't go to college, like got a job, did all the things as independently as possible. And we got married. We were both 24 when we got married. And he was like much more of an adult than I was. And I had lived on my own. Like my parents lived in Maryland. I went to school in Mississippi. Like I was far away from them. And I lived in an apartment or house. I like had my own car. I did all those things. But like mentally, Ryan was much more of an adult than I was at that same time.
That's interesting. And do you think that's because of a little bit of how you were raised?
I think, I mean, I'm not saying that my parents were like micromanaging, because they really weren't, but it was just more like they were more involved. I mean, like I said, there's like other things happening in both of our families as we were teenagers, but it's really interesting that I have noticed that
parenting matters. The parenting matters, and you can see the effects of it long term. And it might not be the worst thing in the world either. It might not be like, oh, that person is completely a mess.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in some cases, kids they're not launching, especially young men. I think it's a higher number because of video games, and they're getting sucked into that world where that is allowing them to feel like they're accomplishing things and conquering. And there are kids that won't leave their room. I talked to this man, his name's Dr. Nicholas Carderas. Here's another book. It's called Glow Kids. And he talks about how, and this is a pretty old book, but the algorithms, especially for video games, are really sucking in young men. And he deals with addiction, which is now completely screen addiction. Like he was dealing with drug addiction. And he's like, there's so many people who need help with screen addiction, especially young men, but even young women for like social media. You can be addicted to pornography. You can be addicted to gambling. You can be addicted to video games. You can be addicted to social media. And there's all these addictions, and the kids are punching holes in the wall if the parent tries and takes a video game away, or they're peeing in the room. Because they're not going to get up to leave. And these, and when you're like Christine earlier, you were like, I can't even believe it. But it is story after story. It is professor after professor. They're saying they don't even assign books to read anymore in college. No one will read long form media. That there are high school students who didn't read one book for pleasure their whole high school career. So there's a lot going on, and little by little, those decisions add up. And so by taking your kids, there's a lot here. This is heavy. This feels heavy.
Mm-hmm.
By taking your kids outside, it solves almost all the problems. You learn that your kids can be trusted. You learn that they can trust their own bodies. When our oldest daughter was 7, our oldest is a son, but our oldest daughter was about 7 or 8. We were at this like little family vacation in North Carolina, in Asheville. It's like so beautiful there. There's all these waterfalls and things. And so we were out at this like waterfall. It's called Graveyard Fields, which is a weird name because it's gorgeous, but it's called Graveyard Fields. And there's this waterfall that comes down. You can swim in this pool there. And then it like kind of flows down. There's all these rocks. So we get there, we hike in a little ways, and the kids just went scampering off on these rocks, and off they go running, and they're playing in the water. And I was like, that looks fun. So I was like, I'm going to try it. And I tell you what, it is not easy. You're going scampering on these rocks. It gets slippery. I'm like, every single step, you can feel your brain working, because every single step you're having to like keep yourself upright and like, is this one going to turn? And you have to really think. And I was so much slower than them. And at one point I slipped. And I would have gotten pretty hurt. I would have gone downstream a little bit. And my daughter, who was 7 years old, grabbed my arm and like helped keep me upright. So she had enough wherewithal in her own body to manage herself through this, like treacherous terrain and help me. And she says that's a vacation that she saved my life. And I was like, you're exaggerating. But, do you know how much trust I have I have so much trust in my kids and their bodies and their awareness, because we have spent all of this time outside, and little by little by little, you're learning to pass that baton. And this concept of just getting out there and staying out there, it's helping with all of that growth and development. So you're not needing a lot of these extra services. There's a woman named Angela Hanscom. I think she wrote one of the best books about this out there. It's called Balanced and Barefoot. She's a pediatric occupational therapist. And so she was on the front line of seeing all of a sudden my wait list is a mile long. People can't get into therapy services for a full year. She was like, what's going on? And she says it's completely tied to lack of play and lack of time in nature. It's not all kids, but it's a great majority of the kids would not need any of this if they just were playing outside. So are you fighting over screens? You're going to go outside. You just won't have time for it. It solves so many of the modern day parenting problems simply by being intentional about getting out into nature.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different educational pedagogies that really believe in getting outside. Montessori is one of them. Waldorf is massive in that as well. And they're all about, you have to have the right gear. Okay. And this is my burning question. That's one thing if you live in a cold climate, because you can always put more layers on. But what the flip do you do when you live in 110 degrees Texas? And I mean, I love the heat. I'm a lizard by nature as well, but like they don't want to be outside. They're like, it's too hot.
You don't even want to be outside running around.
Yeah.
It's one thing to like sit outside with a book.
In the shade, maybe, or by a pool.
Right, or by a pool.
No, these are all really good points. So there's a couple things. First of all, one of the benefits of getting outside is it helps your children develop grit and resilience. Most days are not blue sky 75 and sunny. Most of them are not. You get a few of those a year, or 85, whatever you in Michigan. I don't know, maybe 75 feels cold if you live in Texas, but that's like a gorgeous day for us. 65 and sunny is actually like ideal in Michigan.
No, that's
so you're like, okay, a gorgeous day for 85. Yeah. But everyone has their things, and part of it is learning to develop grit. And there's a man named Stephen Ranella who talks about that quite a bit. He has a book called Outdoor Kids in an Inside World. Ranella. Yeah, he's been on our podcast a couple of times, and he talks about that he says, and this is kind of a controversial way that he says it, but he says, my kids complain about why do we have to do such and such, because his kids complain too, and our kids complain. And he says, that we have to go ice fishing, I'm too cold, that we have to go on this hike, it's too hot, both ends of the spectrum. When my kids complain, why do we have to do this one thing or the other? He says, he responds with, so that you can hang out with the popular people when you're older. And people don't like that, because popular has negative connotations.
Wait, you have to explain that. I don't get that.
And see, here's what he means. He means that like when you get older, that you are this grittier person that can go do stuff, that you can have conversations, that you have this substance to you, that you have things that you've done in your life that you can talk about. And that's kind of what he means there. Popular is like a little bit of a word rub, like people don't love the word, but I get the point. It's like, well, Stephen Ranella has got so many relationships. Well, why? It's because he does stuff with his life. He's out doing things. And the only way that you can do that is if you learn to be uncomfortable here and there. There's a really good book by Michael Easter called The Comfort Crisis, where he's like, everyone is just trying to be comfortable. Like that is the main goal, is comfort. Well, you lose out on a lot of life when that's your main goal. So first of all, I would look at inclement weather as an opportunity for kids to become a little hardier and to learn that they can get through things. That said, we are aiming to be outside for 1,000 hours in a year. And we do that on purpose because sometimes you have a baby, or sometimes you broke your foot, or sometimes you're helping your mom because she's sick, or sometimes your workload's really heavy, or sometimes you're dealing with grief. Like life happens, and that's seasonal and figurative, like that there are seasons in life. There are seasons. And so if I lived in the South, then I would be spending a ton of time outside in February, probably in March and maybe April, where in Michigan, those are not the best months. Those are our worst months. So we are definitely over indexed in the better months. And I think Charlotte Mason had that caveat, like whenever the weather is tolerable, we try and get outside most days anyways, but it might only be 20 minutes when it's 10 degrees below zero, and you're going to bundle up and you're going to get out and you're going to feel that whip of cold air, and it's going to wake you up and you're going to feel alive. You're going to get that full spectrum light, even if it's cloudy, and then you're going to go back in. And it's Linda McGurk talks about this. She's got a book called Rain or Shine, Mama. So my goal is to have your book list be like 20 books, 20 books by the time we leave. Totally. And then you can read them all in 1 year if you read one chapter a day. Okay. You'll read them all. So she talks about how that, and you guys live in the South, so this is going to be opposite. But like for me, if I go outside and it's freezing cold, nothing feels better than coming inside and there's a fire. And you go sit and you have those extremes. The fire does not feel as good. The warm, cozy room never feels as good if you haven't been outside in the cold first. And I would say the opposite's true. If you're in air conditioning all day, every day, you don't even feel it. It feels like nothing. But if you've been outside sweltering in that heat for 42 minutes and you go inside, there is nothing like that relief and that feeling that you get, this cold, and it refreshes you. And so that kind of middle of the road feeling, that comfort, is not giving us I feel like the full expression of life. So what I would say, if you live in a place that's really hot and we have this like schedule, it's like, well, you go out less in the summer, and you go out. If you go out, you're going to go out in the mornings, and your body knows what to do. Your body knows to seek shade. Your body knows to bring cold water. Your body knows, like, we're just going to, rock in the hammock for 25 minutes and get a dose of full spectrum light, and we're going back inside. But in February on the weekend, maybe we could be out from 10 to 6. Maybe we can make a meal. Maybe we could have something waiting in the crock pot when we come home. We're going to go out for the whole day. It's going to be beautiful. And we're going to take our vacation, and we're going to go to a place that's got outdoor options. And so it's this over the course of a year. The numbers are scientifically backed. Like the Angela Hanscom says, kids should be outside for 3 hours a day on average for the entire course of childhood. That includes your babies and that includes your teens.
So I know a lot of people down in the South will, homeschoolers, because you don't have the option if you're in school, but homeschoolers will take off, like December, January, because that's when it's fairly nice out. Oh, and then we will do school in June, July, maybe, or July, August, and then take another break and, do it like that so that you're actually inside on purpose when it's a heat index of ridiculous and everybody's saying you're going to die if you go outside. You're just going to burn up to a crisp automatically. Yeah. But, so I do know homeschoolers that do that, which I think is really cool. I've never been able to pull it off with my kids, but I also haven't tried that hard. So can't really.
It's surprisingly really nice in December in Texas.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure. We do that. We do similar. It's just opposite. Like we do our most schoolwork in February.
Yeah.
But, that's also a gorgeous time of year down south. But it's pretty wretched in Michigan in February. So that's our most time. We get the most school. People are like, what's your homeschool schedule? Like February.
Yeah.
Everything in February. It's only 28 days, but
but it's
the shortest month.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, that's what you get to do as a homeschooler, though, is you get to revolve your life around what you want to revolve it around. And here in Michigan, it's September and it's gorgeous out. So I'm like, we're not sitting inside for 6 hours to do some worksheets because that's what other people are doing. Like, who said we have to do it that way?
That's such a good point.
Okay, so this gives us a real good transition into your new book.
I know. I actually really wanted you to talk about that. Thank you, Corey.
But I do want to ask, does it count for 100 or 1,000 hours outside? Does it count to just take your schoolwork outside?
Oh, yes.
Go sit on the patio.
Oh my goodness. This is a question we get all the time.
I need to know.
Anything counts if you're outside.
Anything counts.
If your kid is in a stroller, it counts. If you're doing your schoolwork, if you're eating your homemade mac and cheese, whatever, it all counts because the outside provides all of these sensory inputs that you don't get indoors. The light is extremely important, but so is the surround sound. So is that feeling of wind on your skin. These kids are going into therapy and they have to have someone blow a fan on them because they're not used to having that wind in their face. And how do they breathe through it? So any time outside counts. Now, people will send in a thing and they'll be like, I was at a pool and the pool was inside, but the ceiling was made of windows. And does that count as going outside? No, that's not outside. I was at a huge play area and the kids could climb. Can I count that? No, that's not outside. I was riding a horse in an indoor arena, but the door was open. No, that's not outside. It's not outside. If there's nature above and nature below, I think the one thing that can be confusing is like a cave. We would count a cave because nature above and nature below.
Okay.
I mean, that's kind of what we're looking at. So I don't think that sleeping in a tent counts as being outside because you're sleeping, but there's no rules. Okay. It's just an idea about being intentional about getting outside. So 1,000% taking your schoolwork outside is wonderful to do with your kids. Take your read alouds out there, take a blanket. I mean, that's like the prime of life.
Yeah, I'm going to remember that for next week.
All right. So your first book is called
Until the Streetlights Come On. I do have kind of a lot of books. I've self-published them and I've self-published them and I have regular published them. So I actually have 3 books that are all called 1,000 Hours Outside.
What?
It's so ridiculous.
Did you rewrite them?
So stupid. No, they're all different books. It's so dumb. I just don't. It's because I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if there's any other author in the world that has 3 different books that all have the same name. So I have 3 books that are called 1,000 Hours Outside. One of them is traditionally published through DK Books, and it's like an activity book. It's pretty cute. Yeah, but then I have these other ones that I self-published. They all have the same name. So the newest books have new names. I've gotten better at what I'm doing. One of them is called Until the Streetlights Come On, which is about how a return to play makes today better, but also prepares your kids for tomorrow. And I think that's the biggest point. I think that we all want to better today. And that's the situation I was in. I was like, I really want to like being a mom. I really want to love this. I love my kids. I know the season is short. And so play allows for a better today. It allows for a calmer today. And it allows for you to really cherish and kind of fall into that day and love it. But play also prepares for tomorrow. So it's not shortchanging. And I think sometimes we look at play as a shortchange. Okay, yeah, we're going to play, but then my kid's going to be behind. It's actually the opposite. We are in a rapidly changing world. Our kids are going to have new jobs every two years-ish is what the statistics say, 7 careers. So if your kid is a Gen Z, Gen Alpha, they're going to have 7 careers. That's not 7 jobs, 7 careers with new jobs every 18 months to 2 years. That's the average. They are going to have superior social skills, superior. And the way that you get those is through play. There's no other way that you get superior social skills. You do not get them through seat work. You do not get them through adult organized activities. You only get them through play. So the neural wiring is going to be stronger. The connection to self is going to be stronger. And the play is the vehicle for a good today and a good tomorrow. So that's what Until the Streetlights Come On is. I think sometimes we look at play as old fashioned, and it's not. It really could not be more current. The newest book, which came out in May, is just called Homeschooling.
Which I love it. That's great.
Really
That's so straightforward.
Because no one else had taken the name. But the subtitle is You're Doing...
kidding.
Yeah, so that's it. It's called Homeschooling. And the subtitle is You're Doing It Right Just by Doing It, which is what I firmly believe.
Love it.
That's really encouraging for any homeschooling parent out there, and especially the new ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you are. And the point of life is that life is not static. Life is there's always an ebb and flow. There's always growth. And so your homeschool journey when you have a 4-year-old is going to look wildly different from when you have a 14-year-old. And that could be confusing because in a public school setting, it's not like that. They look very similar. Then you've got 6 teachers instead of 1, but it's just this moving through of curriculum. And with homeschooling, your years are going to look different because you're adjusting to your kids and their ages and their stages and the way your family's made up and where you live and all of those different things. And that is so much more a picture of how real life is. Your kids are walking alongside of you as you craft a life. And so they are also learning for 18 years how to craft a life. And there is so much in there that's important.
Okay, so I feel like, and I was talking to some friends of mine at our homeschool co-op yesterday, and they were saying the same thing where you like go through seasons of homeschooling. Like 1 year, you're like, yeah, like I feel solid. Like I've got this worked out. I know how it goes. We're good. And then you like get to the next year and you're like, I have no idea how to teach anything anymore. Like, I don't know what my kid needs. I don't know how to deal with, now I have 3 students versus 2 students, or like for me personally, right now, I have a middle schooler who is like doing middle school and high school work because he's incredibly smart and needs the push. I have another middle schooler. I have what is she, 2nd grade, and then a kindergartner. And so, and I am like, I don't even know. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I've told Christine, I was like, I don't feel like I have any brain power to do anything aside from school my children.
Yeah. Like Corey has literally been like, I don't know how I'm going to do the podcast this year.
I know. I'm like, I don't know. Like, it's just a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. It is a lot, but you're doing it right.
I mean, technically, yeah, we're doing it.
It is a lot. I mean, that parenting is a lot. Parenting is a lot. Parenting is supposed to be hard. And so if it feels really hard, you're doing it right. And if it feels a little less hard, you're probably doing it right too. Maybe you've just found a little hack, or you're taking your kids outside a little bit more, and it's a little bit, less stressful. There's a really good book I'm adding to the list. This is actually one of my favorites. So if you're looking for a short homeschool read, you could probably read it in a weekend. It's got a really offensive title. It's called Dumbing Us Down: The Hidden Curriculum of Compulsory Education. And the author, yes, it's 6 chapters. It's going to cost you $10. It might even be free online, but reading online isn't as good for your eyes. So get the book. All right. And he's not alive anymore. He passed away a few years ago. John Taylor Gatto did, but he was a public school educator for 30 plus years in New York, and he won awards doing it. So this is not some Joe Schmo who knows nothing. This is someone who was in the system for year over year over year. And he talks in the book about the hidden curriculum of compulsory education. So, you think you're sending your kid to learn math and to learn science. And he says, no, by the way the system is set up, your kids are learning a lot of other things. Amongst them is apathy. They're learning apathy. Someone always is telling you what to do. When the bell rings, you're done. And so even if you were super interested in a topic, or, you wanted to learn more, it's over. And so you lose that self-driven part of you. Everybody loves to learn. Are you kidding me? If you find the right topic or subject, everybody loves to learn. I love to learn. Everyone who's listening is like, if I had time, I would want to learn whatever. I'd like to learn how to crochet better. I'd like to learn how to bake better. I want to learn more about history. I'd like to learn more about music. I want to be a better gardener. Like, everybody has areas in their life that if they had the time, they would devour information. People like to learn. It makes you feel good. So he says, John does, that it only takes 50 to 100 hours for a child to reach functional literacy is the phrase he uses. So functional literacy means that you could learn anything you ever wanted to learn. Functional literacy is reading, writing, math, a foundation so that if you wanted to learn about construction, if you wanted to learn about forestry, if you wanted to learn about dinosaurs, if you wanted to learn about space, if you wanted to learn about rocks or botany, whatever it is you wanted to learn about, you could learn it. 50 to 100 hours at the right age and stage. It's not for your 4-year-old, but maybe your kid is 9 when they start to read, or 8, or whatever age. And I think that takes the pressure off. I'm hesitant to agree with everything that's shoved into a 4th grade curriculum and a 5th grade curriculum and a 6th grade curriculum. I think it leaves out a lot of the world. I think that there's a lot of things that if kids are naturally allowed to dive into because they like them, they're going to learn about every subject and it's going to be intertwined. And so I think there's just a little less pressure to, for a kindergartner or a 2nd grader. I mean, in my opinion, they can just play all day. If you have an environment set up where they can just play, so then you've got the middle schoolers. And by the time, if you've got a middle schooler that's doing high school work, they probably don't need a ton of direction. It sounds like, they maybe need some, but off they go.
They just need a bookshelf, right?
They need a bookshelf. Yeah. And then maybe you're working with the one a couple hours a day and that's manageable. So I'm not trying to micromanage your situation, but
please
you brought up
micromanage.
Your kids.
You want to come to my house and audit my homeschooling. I would love it.
So I think that the parts that we try and control and the parts that we maybe feel a little on edge about, we're not filling the whole day. There's so much time here for the kids to just be. And I'm not doing it like a school where in 2nd grade, they would have something from 8 to 3:30 constantly, some sort of a thing that they're doing, a worksheet, an experiment or whatever. There's so much more open time. But I actually think that's the way that you grow the most, is by having open time and learning what you love and learning how to learn and learning that you love learning and learning that you can learn whatever you want to learn and that you can go deep into a subject that you love. And so who was talking about it? Somebody was talking about, I think it's Lenore Skenazy in her book, it's called Free Range Kids, where she talks about how there is a line for a majority of the population that goes from age 8 into adulthood in terms of what they're doing with their life. Like those things that you love when you're 8 matter a lot. They often translate into your career choice. And if there is a lot of time then for your 8-year-old, your 2nd grader, to dig into the garden, to whatever this make crafts, whatever that 2nd grader likes to do, if they have a lot of time to bake in the kitchen, that often translates into what they're going to do for the rest of their life. I'm going to tell you a story that illustrates it. There is this chef, his name is Nathan Lippy, and he works for Blackstone. So a lot of homeschoolers, I think, know what Blackstone is because you can make a lot of food at once. You got your big family and you can make 39 pancakes at once. It's like this, right? It's like a grill, but with no slats. So it's this rollout.
It's a giant cast iron skillet.
Mm-hmm.
Boom. All right. So you have the Blackstone and Nathan is high up. He does videos for them and content creation. And he told me this story about when he was 8 or 9, right around that age, and he loved to cook. And he said nobody in his family cooked. They made fish sticks all the time, but he liked to cook and he was homeschooled. So his mom let him watch all these, Ray, I wouldn't have been Rachel Ray, but I don't know, old
all
cooking
the PBS
shows.
shows like Julia Child. Yeah,
Yes.
I used to do that.
Yes, just like that. Yeah. And look at that. And now you're an amazing chef. You're cooking all these things for your family. You know how to make homemade mac and cheese, all of the things. So that's what he was doing. And he said that he wanted to make homemade ravioli one time. And his mom had gone out to the store and she was gone, and he's 8 or 9 years old, and he decides he's going to make homemade ravioli. So he said he got out the flour, he made the well in the middle where you do the egg, he's making the homemade pasta, he's rolling it out, he's seen it on the show. And in the fridge, he said they had queso that was from like carry out. They had queso from carry out because the family didn't cook. So he's putting the queso inside these homemade raviolis, and he said he parboiled them. I was like, I don't even know what parboiled is. He's 8 years old. He parboils these things, and he I don't know what he makes the ravioli. And he said his mom came home. His mom came home to a kitchen where an 8-year-old had made homemade ravioli. And she was kind of shocked because it was a total mess. I mean, there's flour everywhere, you can imagine. And so she sat down at the table and she said, Nathan, you're going to need to clean this up. I'll eat what you made though. And so he brings her over the dish, and he said he will never forget that moment because she took a bite, and he said she looked at him and was like, you made this? It actually makes, I'm like tearing up. She said, you made this? She said, I have never tasted anything so good in my life. And he said that look on my mom's face changed the entire trajectory of my life. That one moment. And it came from, like, what did that come from? It came from nothing. It came from a mom who just allowed her kid to pursue his passions. She wasn't even home. Like, she wasn't even home. She's not teaching him a lesson at the blackboard. She's literally not even there. And that was the moment. And I think we put so much pressure on ourselves to like guide and to be the one and to show them this, but they already have it in them. That's what Stephen Pressfield says. He's like, our kids come into the world, they come in how they are. And there's nothing you can throw at them, nothing that you can ever do is going to change it one micro dot, or says something like that. You know, they have their passions. They came how they came. And so our jobs, I think, is to facilitate that to the best of our ability. And it is often facilitated in downtime, which to us may look like a failure because we didn't fill the day. And at the public school, the teacher fills the day. And we can't do that because we have so many other things, and we've got other kids, and we have other responsibilities. And so there's a lot of open time and space. But that is the right about homeschooling. That is the you're doing it right, even though to the rest of the world, it might look like it's wrong.
Okay, so talk me through, because my little kids, you know, I have a kindergartner, second grade. They can, their school work, you know, like the work part of it, like a math and they do Explode the Code, right, which covers handwriting and phonics and, you know, that stuff. That's pretty much the amount of school that they have daily. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm cool with that. Like, and then they go play, right? However, on the flip side, you have my, and well, I should say we also do like some together things with science and history and read alouds. But then on the flip side, you have my 2 older ones who are 7th grade and 8th grade. And they have more work to do. You know, we have state requirements we have to meet. And I am not going to be the mom who is unschooling because A, it stresses me the bleep out. And B, like it takes so, like, I think to unschool, you have to be a lot more, you have to have a lot of time to give to your children, and a lot of, it takes a lot more work from the parents to successfully unschool, from what I understand. However, what I'm trying to say is that they have a lot more work to do, and consequently, they have a lot less downtime. And now that is to say that, like, this morning, we recorded at 10 o'clock my time. Okay. My kids got all of their stuff done by 10 o'clock this morning because they know that while I'm recording, they're allowed to do screens because it's the only way that I get quiet for recording. And so they were like hustling to get their stuff done. So today, now, you know, at 11:30, I'm going to get done recording and they'll be done with school, and it'll be like, they were done by 10 o'clock because they pushed. But for usual days, my older 2 are going to not be done with school until like 4:30 because they're just not pushing. And I'm like, where do I make sure that they have that downtime? Or is it just that they're taking their downtime in the middle of the day when they want it, and I should not be stressing about it?
That's actually a really good question.
I don't think you should be stressing about it.
Yeah.
I just think there's...
I'm so type A, Ginny, like not stressing.
And that's okay. I mean, well, I also think that that's okay too. You know, and I wrote this book, Homeschooling, You're Doing It Right Just by Doing It. And I think a lot of people look at that title and think what you're thinking, Corey, about unschooling. It's like, yeah, it's okay if you go spend your day flitting around in the creek and catching crawdads, and that's okay. But I what I really mean it to be is also if you're type A and your kid is doing online school and they're really studious or they have lots of classes that they're taking, I don't think that you can do it wrong. And some people would be like, well, what about the parents that are abusing their kids? That's not homeschooling. If you are actually homeschooling and you have your kids there and you care about their education, even if you're overwhelmed and even if you're, at the end of your rope and you're trying to juggle a lot of things, I really, truly believe that you're doing it right because, as John Taylor Gatto says, there are a million ways to become educated. A million. Actually, he says this. That's actually not what he says. He says there are as many ways to become educated as there are fingerprints. That's what he says. Mm-hmm. Everybody's way to become educated is right and fine, and they're going to grow. And so I think in that type of situation, it's like if they take till 4:30 to do their schoolwork and you don't have anything else that you need to do during that time, then have at it. If it's stressing you out because you're like, well, we really wanted to go to the park as a family from 12 to 4, then it's like, well, it needs to be done by noon. We're leaving. Your best friend's going to be there. I'm bringing this food you really like, whatever. You could entice it a little bit, but also, if it's working, it's working. And if you don't care that they're not done till 4 and your other kids are having a fine time playing and you can pop on and do podcasts once a week or whatever, like the pressure just comes from the fact that so many people are doing it one way. And yet there are all sorts of ways to learn and to grow. And it's so bizarre to me because when we hit adulthood, people disperse in as many ways as there are fingerprints. They go on and live all different kinds of lives. You talked about that with your husband, right, Corey? It's like you went to college. He just went into the workforce. People go all of their different ways, and then they learn and they grow and they build a life. And so my advice would be to trust yourself and to be okay with it, to breathe through it, to change what you want to change. If something truly is not working, you're like, I don't like this. I don't like that they do school till 4:30 because it takes up our whole day. I wish that they were done by 2. Well, then you can talk about that. I mean, they're 7th and 8th grade, so you can have a conversation. We want to go do things at 2:00. I need you to be done by then. How can I help you to get there? But I think that type A homeschool moms are just as great as type B homeschool moms, and that everyone is passing on to their kids what they need to pass on.
I love it.
I know. I was just thinking, like, this is such a good episode and we've covered so many topics, and I thought we were just going to be talking about going outside, and you've dropped incredible little inspiration nuggets throughout the whole episode, Ginny. It's so good.
People say that when I go do panels. I hate panels. Do you ever do panels? Like where you sit on the stage and you're with 3 other people? Yeah. I hate panels. But I'm always just like, go outside. People be like, how can I help my marriage? Go outside. How my kid is struggling with it? Go outside. I mean, it's a very simplistic answer. So I need to have some other things up my sleeve, right? Like go outside. Yeah. It's not going to fill an hour and a half, but I have read a lot and I do have a lot of opinions. I have a lot of opinions based off of what I've read, a lot of philosophies. There is this man named Dr. Leonard Sachs, and he talks about the middle class script. And he says that so much of us live by this middle class script where it's like you go to K-12 education and that prepares you for college, and the college prepares you for this certain job. And then, you get your picket fence and your family, and then you're happy. And he says the problem with the middle class script is that it's wrong. It's false. It's not true. And I think that we all march the same direction, where in many cases, occasionally it works, right? But he's like, so many people, they don't get into the college they want. They don't end up getting the job. The job isn't based off of the college. They got a lot of debt. Life is not so linear. And so if you are hustling and struggling through your day to day, and you are trying to figure out, how can I optimize this a little bit? How can I tweak it? I think you are modeling the most incredible things for your family. And otherwise, they are in the dark. They spend their formative years, 5 to 18, being told what to do almost every minute of the day, because it includes homework. And then they become an adult and they're like, well, how do I make my own decisions? Kim John Payne says that by 2030, which is like in 4 years. And so this statistic could be off, but he said something like by 2030, 75% of the workforce will either be entrepreneurs or people who are juggling more than one job. And you can see that, right? You see that in the world where people are like juggling a couple different things, or they're, branching out and doing their own thing. There's all these layoffs because of AI. And you cannot, I mean, I'm sure that there are some people, but like I would say it's hard. It's harder to be an entrepreneur when your whole life has been scripted for you.
I definitely think that the world our kids are going to be going into for college, whatever, is going to be vastly different than what we did. I mean, it's potentially non-existent or not necessary.
Yeah. Yes. I agree with you. And we're not, the education system is not set up to be dynamic and to change quickly, but you are.
Yeah.
You are in your homeschooling. You are set up to be able to shift and to turn. And when you come to your kids and you say, look, what we've been doing isn't really working. We're doing school till 4:30 and that's not really working out for your siblings, and we're a family, and we're going to make a small change starting tomorrow. That teaches your kids that life is fluid and that you constantly are kind of like adjusting and trying different things. And that's how you live a good life. And it's not, I actually think that is one of the primary parts of it, is that a child is able to see. I think it's incredible that you do the podcast, Corey. I would never quit that. I would never, ever quit that, because also part of adulthood is modeling that adulthood is a good destination. There's this woman named Linda Flanagan. She wrote a book called Take Back the Game. And she talks about how, for the most part, we're presenting adulthood as a big bore, that it's like this destination where all you do is sit on the sidelines. And what I have found is that when I expand myself, it expands opportunities for my children as well. Now, they're not 3, right? So there's definitely different seasons for things. And there's seasons where you kind of let things go and maybe they come back around. But when you have something that you hold, that you are passionate about, that's also modeling to your kids. Like, I'm excited to be an adult. There's something there for me. And I think a lot of kids are not transitioning because, well, how have we presented it? Like, it's some huge drudgery. All you do is work and sit on the sidelines during my soccer games. And we're in Georgia and it's 115 degrees. And like, you're melting. Like, that's no fun. So I also think that being passionate and having your own thing, now it's tricky if you've got a 7-month-old and you're nursing, but that season is not going to be forever. So give yourself permission to do the things that you love and let your kids watch, and let your kids come aside. Let them see that, you know what, I get an hour or 2 of screen time because my mom is doing what she wants to do. I think that those types of things go a long way as well.
Julie Bogart talks about that too in, what is her book called? I don't remember. But we're having her on our podcast not too into the future. I'm not sure when publishing is going to work out. But
yeah,
I remember reading that in that book and realize that's actually one of the reasons we started the podcast, is because I had read that in her book and I was like, I actually need to show my kids that I have something that I enjoy doing, that is cool to do. That's like, and I don't want it to sound like a selfish, like it's for me, because it's not necessarily that.
No, but that's
it's
okay.
Just that it's like,
that's okay. It's, even if it was just for you, also that's okay. And good. Isn't that good? I mean, who wants to become an adult if we're portraying adulthood as being this awful destination? I think it should be enticing.
I think that's so powerful.
That is, now that you're saying it, I've thought about that, but I haven't really, reflected on it a lot. But what do? We're literally drudging through life. We wake up, we pack the lunches, we send kids to school, we go to work, we come home, we put them, we go the whole thing. And it's just like blah, blah, blah. It's so boring and hard.
Yeah, pay bills, pay taxes. Like, my kids are always joking about paying taxes, which I think is hilarious. The book, Julie Bogart's book, is called The Brave Learner, just to add to your list.
And I'll add one more, because I'm hoping that we get to 20, because I really think if you read one chapter a day, you're going to get them all done in a year. So there's a book called Teach Your Own. It's by Dr. Madeline Levine. She also has a book called Ready or Not. They're both phenomenal books. She's probably in her 70s and has worked with families for decades and decades and decades. Those are the people you really want to be talking to, are the people who have seen the change from before 2012 and after 2012. If they had experience, because a lot of them will say, look, there's a man named Thomas Kirsting who says, and he was working in the high school, and he was like, no kid was being diagnosed with ADHD as a high schooler up until 2012. And then all of a sudden, all these kids are being diagnosed as high schoolers. He said no kid had anxiety. Zero kids are coming to his counseling office as a high schooler with anxiety until 2012. And then in 2012, 70% of who he's dealing with are kids with anxiety. So those are important.
When an iPhone came out, right?
That's around when the iPhone hit 50% of the population. The iPhone came out, I think, in 2009. So those are important. Those are important people to pay attention to. Dr. Leonard Sachs, Dr. Peter Gray, they have seen the change, and so they can really speak into it. But Dr. Madeline Levine says, when parents thrive, kids thrive. When parents thrive, kids thrive. How many parents are thriving?
Yeah.
Not that many.
Yeah.
I would venture to say not that many, right? So have that be a North Star. It's like, how could you thrive more in your life? If you are even feeling drudgery in your homeschool, I would put that as a North Star. How could we set this up knowing that there are as many ways to become educated as there are fingerprints? So however we do it is going to be the right way. How could we set this up in a way where we all thrive? And that's going to make a big difference on your family and for your kids. And it's going to be different for everyone.
That's beautiful. I love that.
What can you give people who are not homeschooling? Like, what advice do you have for people who are not doing that? Maybe even people who have split kids, you know, some go to school, some don't. And how do you work that? A, how do you manage the getting 1,000 hours outside? And then B, how can you take some of those principles and work that into your life if your kids are not home?
Okay, those are good questions. So let me start with if you're not homeschooling, just straight up if you're not homeschooling. I think in general, for all parents, we have to be thinking about the world that we're sending our kids into and what skills will be valuable for the world we send them into. So it is not seat work skills. Those skills are not going to be super valuable. The skills of the future are relational, and they are the creative type skills. Can I think out of the box? Can I be quick on my feet? Can I be flexible? Can I adapt? There's a woman named Isabel Howe who wrote a book called Love to Learn, and she talks quite a bit about how the skills of the future are relational. And there's a man named Jerry Kaplan who he's from Harvard, and he wrote a book a long time ago called Humans Need Not Apply. And then he wrote one recently more recently called Generative Artificial Intelligence, What Everyone Needs to Know. So he's been working on artificial intelligence since the 80s. And he knows it all. Like, he knows what's going on. And so he talks also about how the future jobs have to do with humanity, because people are so sick of their screens. So they're going to deal with hobbies. He talks about how when things change, like the industrial age, or when there's these new technologies, there ends up being more money. It's always happened. He's like, no one's sitting in the woods in a cabin eating a potato sack, like a sack of potatoes. Like, they could be. Like, we could all have great lives if we wouldn't have hardly any bills to pay or any taxes if we did. He's like, no, because when things expand, then you start to spend more money on other things. So what are the things that people are going to be spending more money on? Their hobbies. They want to feel like humans. So it's important to make your parenting decisions based off of where the world is headed. And there's a lot of information about where the world is headed. It's headed to a little bit more of a chaotic environment, which gives a lot of opportunities. Here's an opportunity for us to sit and do a podcast. I mean, there's different opportunities out there. So I wouldn't do any homework. If I were a family that's not homeschooling, I would spend zero time on homework, especially K to 6. Like, no homework at all. If they send a homework packet home for your 4th grader, either I would do it, which sounds really dishonest, but I would do it with my left hand.
You as a parent.
I would, if they had to do it, I would possibly just do it with my left hand and send it in. Or that's awful, but I don't think that we have to jump through all these hoops. I don't think that we should jump through hoops that someone else made up that aren't applicable to today. So if it was going, I think it's a tricky.
And Ginny, you're my type of people.
Well, it's really tricky because I was a teacher, and I feel like if you are the parent that's like, my kid's not going to do this and I can't, it does actually reflect negatively on your child. That is the way the world works. The best parents are the ones that's like, here's a gift card to Barnes and Noble. You know, like, I mean, It just is what it is. Humans are people. Teachers are humans. Humans are people. I don't know. I've never said before humans are people. That was the stupidest sentence ever. Teachers are humans and people. Teachers are just people. So like, if you are calling and being like, I'm not doing this and I don't, my kid, blah, blah, the teachers are already overwhelmed. So if it felt like it was easy and you were like, in our family, we don't do homework and it's not going to cause problems for the teacher and it's not going to reflect poorly on your kid, I would 1000% do that. And I would do what you talked about earlier, Christine, which is like, I would 100% bring some snacks, or maybe you don't do snacks, whatever, depending on your food philosophy. But like at school, when school ends at 3:30, we're staying till 5:00. And I'm gonna try and use Plandy Mandy's food. She's got these amazing like food ideas, and you feed your kid for cheap, and she's got all these good recipes that don't have any junk in them, and like she's got all these crackpot ones. So like I'm gonna set my life up so that we can stay after school at the playground from 3:30 to 5, and we're going to invite some other families. We're going to rotate through, and we're not doing homework. And when we get home at 5:00, we're going to have dinner. We're going to play. We're going to do some board games. We're going to do some puzzles. We're going to do hands-on. No screens. No screens. Zero screens. Do not give your kids screens. Do not. Don't give them to them. And if that's too much, then say we don't do screens from Monday to Friday or Monday to Thursday. That's what they do in the Waldorf. And in our family, like everyone's like, okay, like nobody cares. No, we don't do screens. It's Tuesday. Can I watch a movie? We don't do screens Monday to Thursday. Okay. They're not addicted. So for the non-homeschooling families, no screens, low screens. Kim John Payne says low screen and no screen kids are enduringly popular. There, that word comes again. But it's about, can you build good social relationships? And you have to have some substance to you. So no homework, no screens. That's what I would say. Make sure you're outside on the weekends with your kids. And if you can, like during school breaks, you get outside. If you have split, I guess I would probably say the same thing. If you have some kids that are homeschooling, some kids are public, I think, I truly believe if you can prioritize that outside time and maybe you drop your number a little bit. And that's why this is so weird going way back to the beginning if we want to bring it full circle. No parent in the 1990s paid attention to how much time their kids were outside. And when I started doing this in 2013 is when I started writing about it. Most people, almost everybody was like, that's a really stupid idea. What are you doing? They're like, you what? You're actually paying attention to how much time your kids are outside? They're like, that's so dumb. Why are you doing that? For years, 3-4 years, I kept writing about it. People are like, that's stupid. What a stupid idea. Like, why are you doing that? And it's because it's so easy for it to slip. You make goals for what's hard. Yeah. You don't make goals for like, I got a goal of eating 100 bags of Doritos this year. I really hope I can make it. Nobody makes a goal like that.
That's amazing.
This is hard. It is hard to get your kids outside. You brought that up at the beginning, Corey. This is not easy. Parenting today is not easy. So you make a goal for what you want your life to look like. And I believe that the books that you read will add to the philosophy. They'll add to your resolve. They'll remind you. This book by Nicole Runyon that I talked about at the very beginning, Free to Fly, it just came out. And I read it and it's like, man, it builds my resolve. I am not tracking my child while he drives. I'm not doing these things. And you kind of have to have those inputs because we are in a crushing culture of conformity.
Yeah.
And so if you want to stand on your own 2 feet and do it your way, you have to have different inputs. Podcasts are good long form content. Let your kids see you reading. They are gonna need it more than you. It's just becoming more and more and more conformed. There's these 2 boys. Their names are Andrew and I can't remember the other boy. So sorry to the other boy. They're the Hempy boys. They're twins. And their mom does this thing called Screen Strong. And the boys are like in their early 20s. And they went off to college and they said, every single girl that we meet is exactly the same. They talk about the exact same things. They all kind of look like no one is unique anymore. Why? Because we're all being driven to make decisions based off of algorithms. And so everyone is the same. And they said, if I see a girl that doesn't have her phone out or more than that doesn't have social media, they're like, that's the type of girl I want to be around. There's hardly any of them. So I don't even know how I got here. You should read books.
Yes. I think we should you should just read books. This
chapter
is the moral
a day
of the story.
You can
and be outside.
Have that as a goal too. Oh, yeah, that's where we were. Okay, if you got the split, how do you do 1,000 hours outside if you are not homeschooling? No, everybody used to spend 1,000 hours outside in the 80s and the 90s, and they weren't homeschooling. I spent 1,000 hours outside, probably more. Why? Because when I came, I walked to school. So if that's an option for you, please do that. You really want to get up and get moving. There's a man named Dr. Chris Winter who talks about that because he talks about sleep. The best thing that you can do is get up, get outside, get moving. That's going to really start your day off. It's going to help you with your sleep later at night. That's a whole other conversation. I'm sure you've talked about that on here because that is like modern ancestral wisdom. So you got to get outside. So if you can walk to school and walk home, that's a great thing. Katie Bowman says, and she's the biomechanist from before, she says, look, if you can't walk to school because of where you live, park part of the way. Can you drive halfway? Is there a parking lot that you can stop at halfway and then walk the rest? Even if you're walking 5 or 6 minutes, can you break it up? Can you do that with anything? She's like, if you're going to go to the grocery store, is it possible that you can, or the library, can you just drive part of it and walk the rest and then carry your books? We're meant to walk and carry.
Or park at the very back of the parking lot.
Yeah, sure. Get out and walk. So I would be doing that if you can. If your kids are in school, then I would be protecting that afternoon space, like 4 to 6, 4 to 5. Give them at least an hour. Can they be out for an hour? And then on the weekend, can you go for a longer period of time? If it's really hot where you are, can you go from 8 to noon? Can you go from 9 to 1? And then for the heat of the day, you're back inside. And then, you add in your vacations. It seems laborious. It seems laborious to say, and it almost seems like a restriction in some ways. Like, okay, I'm going to make myself read a chapter of a book a day, or I'm going to make sure that we're getting outside for this amount of time. I'm going to actually keep track of it. In some ways, it seems restrictive, but what it does is it protects the life that you want. It protects your time. John Acuff says, time is your most valuable resource, but also your most vulnerable. And it's very vulnerable. Our time is very vulnerable in this day and age.
Yeah.
It just slips away. It slips away to screens.
It's so true because, and we talked a little bit about this before, so just sort of to, wrap up a little bit, but before the parents could stay inside and the kids would be gone all day. And now if we want our kids to be outside, we're going to have to do it. And as parents, we're constantly loaded with other tasks that we think are more important than being outside and spending time with our kids, or just being outside so that they can play. When in reality, let's be honest, how much of those things really matter? I mean, does it really matter if your floor is swept or the laundry is dirty? Or, I don't know. Yeah, Corey knows. She knows because I obsessed with sweeping my floors. So I'm speaking to myself. But, let's be honest. No, it doesn't. It
doesn't matter because you don't remember it. You don't. Our house has been messy the whole childhood. It's been messy. And I don't regret that. Or did I say that wrong? I don't know. No. I don't care.
No, you said that right.
I don't remember. I don't remember that. In this one house we had when our kids were little, there was like a room over the garage. Sometimes houses have a room over the garage. And so all the toys were in there and it was constantly trashed. And I don't remember. I remember that as a general thing. That room was always messy. I got a picture in my mind of everything everywhere, but I don't remember it specifically. I wouldn't be on April 10th of, 2017, but I do remember those times that we got outside actually quite well. And I can see how year over year that, day over day, week over week, year over year, that those times outside built a different type of a child. And it doesn't matter. You don't remember. You don't remember that one day you left the dishes in the sink. And obviously you have to be functional, but 3 hours of your day outside actually is really not that much. Obviously it's different depending on your work situation, but if you are a homeschooling mom in your home, 3 hours, you got a lot more hours to sweep your floor still.
Yeah.
Yeah. The time is there. The time is going to screens. That's one of the biggest problems.
That's literally what I was going to say. It's you're getting your weekly reminder of you spent 6 hours and 42 minutes a day on your phone. And it's just oh yeah, you're right. I did have time to do my dishes and go outside. I was just doing other things. So this is, oh my gosh, this is such a good kick in the pants. You have really inspired me to spend more time outside and read all of those books. Read all 20 books.
All of those books. I was just thinking about I had read Christine and I have talked about this multiple times, but I read Anne of Green Gables to my kids. One of the first chapter books that I read to my older two children. And I remember at one point during reading it, I had like an epiphany because she was like, Anne had done all these things in one day. It was like she had made some jelly, and then she had worked on her quilt, and then she had written some letters, and she had, I don't know, milked the cow, and then she had walked over to her friend Diana's house, and like all of these things she had time for in her day. And I remember thinking when I was reading it to my children, how does she have time to do all this? But yeah, if you weren't on your screen, you would have more time to do all those things.
I mean, listen to this statistic. This is from Andrew Laubacher, who works for this nonprofit. It's called Humanality. He says the average American spends 257 hours a month staring at a screen.
God almighty.
257 hours. So you got time to go outside and sweep your floor.
I love it. Thank you.
Okay. I feel like we have touched on so many things, but I also feel like now I want to be your best friend and like just soak up all of the amazing
with alligators.
Information that you have.
Would you like to meet me? Would you like to meet me at the Rock Springs in Kelly Park, and we can tube with alligators together?
Yeah, I'll look up how far away that is. Actually, you can just come to my house and go out on our lake. We have a boat, so the alligators.
They can't get in there.
I guess they could like knock it over.
I'm sure they can get in the boat, but
no. Okay, I will say in general, alligators don't care about people.
Yeah,
they just don't. They will eat your dog if your dog is like flapping around on the edge. But that's where people get in trouble, is if the dog is like, and then the alligator gets the dog and the people try and rescue the dog. That's almost always what gets people in trouble.
I've never had this conversation in my life. This is the first time. I've ever talked about alligators getting dogs. I'm sorry to all the kids that are listening.
Yeah. Don't go after your dog. Like, that's just the moral of the story.
You know that we've come up with 2 really good book ideas from this podcast. So one is The Plain Grassy Area. I will read that. Chrissy, and that's yours. And Corey, yours is The Alligator Ate My Dog. I'll buy them both.
Mine is like the most traumatizing book.
A book about trauma for children.
Yeah. It's like a dark humor book, Edward Gorey style is what I'm going for. Okay. Ginny, I would love it if you could give everybody, all the information about where they can find you, connect with you, your podcast, your books, blah, 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 blah.
Okay, I'm not very creative. That's why I have 3 books that all have the same name. So everything in that my newest book is just called Homeschooling. I'm like, that's kind of perfect. I'm like, what's the name going to be? I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, just call it Homeschooling.
Yeah,
that's not taken. I'll pick that.
It's shocking that nobody else had named the book that.
I know. It worked out really well for me, my non-super creative brain. It's just 1,000 hours outside. It's very straightforward, but we do talk about a lot more than getting outside. It's really about parenting and living the life that you really want to live. You get one and it flies by. And, that's when you got little ones, you're like, no, it's not flying by. It only flies by in retrospect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In retrospect, it flies by. In the moment, though, that you're in, it doesn't. So this is about being intentional about what kind of life you want to live. So it's the 1,000 Hours Outside podcast. We've got close to 600 episodes. It's a top 5 parenting podcast in the country. And the 2 newest books are called Homeschooling. You're doing it right just by doing it. And the second one is called Until the Streetlights Come On. They'll change your life. They will change your life. They will give you the life that you want. That's what I have. I have the life that I want. And there are little things I'm like, our oldest is 17. So I'm like, did I teach everything I wanted? Our main issue is that I don't get along with my husband. So we're getting better. But that's actually our biggest problem. Like if there were regrets that I have, I'm like, I wish we could have figured that out earlier. So like, I don't have advice for that part. I actually need advice. People want to send me a list of 20 books for that. Just, shoot me an email. We're getting better. That's something that we're working through. I think we have similar personalities, and we're, like he's kind of raised as an only child and I was the oldest. And so those butt heads. Mm-hmm. So it's nothing like super significant, but like it ends, childhood ends. And by the time they're 15, even 14 and a half, which you would know this, Corey, they really are looking outward toward what kind of a life do they want, what kind of person do they want, and they want to be with friends, and they start to press out from your family. So you have less time than you think. Like even at age 17, I'm like, oh, even if my husband and I like fixed all of our marital problems today, then he wouldn't hardly experience that because he's gone. His friends are having a party and they're having a sleepover, and so is having this, and he's working on, some dual enrollment classes, and he's busy. So it flies by in retrospect, and you have a little bit less time than you think. So that's kind of the gist of the podcast episodes and what I talk about. So I'm on social media like everybody else, have a newsletter like everybody else. It's all 1000hoursoutside.com and at 1000 Hours Outside and 1000 Hours Outside podcast. We have an app too. If people like an app, it's cheap and it's pretty fun. It gives you badges and it just keeps you on track. And it helps you to protect. Yeah, it helps you to protect.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we've got free tracker sheets. You put them on your fridge. It's modeling to your kids how to build the life you want and leave the leftover time for screens and not the other way around.
I like that. Leave the leftover time for screens and not the other way around. That's amazing.
Excellent.
Yeah.
This definitely was not 25 minutes. Remember at the beginning? I was like, how long is it supposed to be? It's like 20 minutes.
Yeah. No, I'm actually glad that it was not, because we got so deep on so many different topics. And I just feel like these episodes are rich and they have more in them than just a quick bam and out. We're done. Yeah. Which you're right. You could just say
media is good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, folks. Anything else?
My turn.
Protect your dog.
Protect your Jeez. Okay. So we're going to do the really quick with Christine and I. So Christine is at Nourish the Littles. I am at For Nutrient's Sake. Our podcast is at Modern Ancestral Mamas. All three of those are on Instagram because it's the only social media that Christine and I use. You can listen to the podcast on Apple and Spotify. You can watch the podcast, see all of our reactions. This one was particularly fun. I think I covered my face a bunch on YouTube. And you can leave comments, reviews, all of that stuff. Leaving reviews, comments, sharing the podcast is the absolute best way to help us, to help the podcast, to get the word out. All the algorithm things you guys know. So thank you very much for listening. Go follow Ginny, buy all of her books and all of the other books that she mentioned, all 20 of them.
That list.
This podcast cost me $200.
Yeah, right.
No, seriously.
Sorry. We need to get some affiliate links on those ones. And all righty. Thank you guys for listening. We love you, ma'am listeners, and we just think you guys are the best. And we are so happy to be able to do this. And thank you very much. That is all. Goodbye.